So today's question, we're going to be looking at how does the UK commercial property market compare to the rest of the world. So I guess, Xavier, there's lots of places people can choose to kind of invest in, not only property, but commercial property specifically. What's your experience of kind of commercial in the country?
Well, I suppose we had a years ago we set up a whole company in America, based in Chicago, and so that gives us an interesting insight into the way property worked in America, and that was industrial actually, and then more recently I was involved in building up a substantial portfolio in Germany, and in that process I looked at a number of other countries within Europe.
Are there clear differences? Can you, when you're kind of going into a new country, are you seeing very obvious differences?
Well, the funny thing is you don't necessarily see them that are very obvious, right? So one of the things which is sort of, you may ignore initially, is the whole legal structure, the security structure. So we take it for granted. We own a freehold, and we got boundaries and all this sort of stuff, and it's taken as a given. Whereas I remember a very good friend of mine buying a villa in Mallorca, and all of a sudden, somebody's building in his front garden, and there's all these things in Spain currently which are under threat of being demolished because they're all built too close to the coast. Some strange things that go on, and those are the things that get publicised. But in other countries, they're all slightly quirky. In some countries, leases don't have the full kind of validity that we take for granted, and exercising a landlord's rights, which we would normally be able to do if a tenant is in default, doesn't happen in the way that we expect it to.
Not only the process of ownership, which is massively important, but the process of what happens next with the lease or the tenant.
So a friend of mine, he had commercial, property let. It had a fixed increase in it. The tenant goes to court, claimed it was uneconomic for them, and he got it waived. Right? I mean, things like that. So, we have case precedent goes back, centuries, right? So that's regarded as extremely valuable. We have a lot of overseas buyers looking at commercial property, and they love that. I mean, they don't immediately anticipate it, but when they do, they think, well, that's tremendous. We've got a very liquid currency, and we've got a very liquid property market, and that's hugely beneficial. Some of these markets are very illiquid. Our market is very transparent. You can go onto the Land Registry website and you can look up all this data.
And we can't take that for granted because all that stuff is, as you said, readily available to an extent now. When it maybe not have been 20, 30 years ago, but for many other countries, they don't have that necessarily.
We used to go to the pub and talk about what Joe Soap might have got for his house down the road, and now you just go online, you can find out precisely what he got. Right? So and all that's really good. And other countries, it's very difficult to lay your hands on that information. So we've got all sorts of online sort of companies that provide databases and stuff like that, which is hugely valuable when you're looking at researching an area and deciding what you might invest in. So we use all that, all those.
And the yields in the UK and maybe price values and asset values, are they line, comparable, competitive compared to other countries? Do you generally see?
Yes, I think there's. If you look around Europe, for example, obviously the with the advent of quantitative easing and all that that's gone on, interest rates being historically low, people have been looking around for any kind of income they can get. So, and that's tended to benefit the pricing of commercial property. Because it does provide you with that income that's so difficult to get anywhere else these days. So, there's so in Euroland, I mean, I think financing is even cheaper, and you might be even charged for keeping your cash on deposit in certain countries. So, whereas we might complain about getting very low interest rates. In some countries, you're actually penalised for having cash in a bank. So, you know, you can see that could drive sort of prices.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And do you see more stability in the UK market from maybe other countries? I appreciate it. There's going to be cycles. There's going to be times when it's more volatile than others. But generally, when you've been in America, Germany, you've looked at other countries and the UK, is there trends that you see from stability in the UK?
Yeah, I think there's, for the minute, obviously, the country's going through this whole sort of slightly unbelievable sort of unsure period. But in spite of that, I mean, I was talking to one of the big surveyors the other day. It's still seeing, you know, a huge amount of interest from the Far East, looking at city office property, commercial property, and because relative to their own country, it's still, you know, very secure, and they, you know, have a slightly different view about it.
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, it's still very, very positive. Very positive.
Good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Xavier.
Yeah. Okay.